Hey everyone, here's our group project. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, my name is Noah, and I am a 37-year-old man. This is the story of my life. Growing up, my family was not in a great position in terms of finances, and neither of my parents were good at keeping jobs. They knew next to nothing about parenting and were totally unprepared for a child. For the most part, they wanted me to be silent and obedient, asking very little of them and needing nothing but essentials. Because of their inability to keep jobs, we were constantly on the move. Our family was not a sharing your feelings type one. When I tried to talk to them, they would remind me of the importance of being quiet. I wouldn't call their parenting neglected, as they did provide everything I needed. However, bare minimum is where they drew the line. If I asked for something extra, they would punish me by ignoring anything I said for a certain period of time. Their expectation of me was to just go with them, wherever they end up, no complaints and no questions asked. Just straight, unwavering obedience. School was a struggle. I knew that much of my academics came hard to me and I never had help. I didn't have any friends and struggled socially. With how much we moved, I learned not to make friends. What was the point in making friends and connections if we weren't going to stay there? I would rarely talk to anyone and ended up never having a positive support system to help me through the tough times. My parents were never helped. They viewed my academic and social struggles as laziness or incompetence. Here again, I learned that asking for help would just get me in trouble, so I didn't. I began to have to do everything myself, resulting in a few very stressful years. I tried many different approaches, trying not to fail. I even attempted to seek outside our help as a last-ditch attempt. At this point, I was doing anything to not fail and let my parents down. Eventually, however, I broke down. All the stress and exhaustion had finally gotten to me, and I ranted to my parents. Funny enough, it was the one time that they actually listened to me, and I admitted that I was tired of moving and being alone. When I was in 6th grade, my parents talked to a youth pastor who was looking for help running slides and lights at a youth group. It was there that my interest in the Lord began. My family continued to move, but wherever I went, the lessons that I learned there stayed with me. Despite my struggles with school, lack of friends, and a stable parental relationship, I always tried to keep my chin up. My parents had vaguely taught me of God growing up, and I believed that He was out there and loved me, even though I wasn't very close to God at this point in my life. At the beginning of high school, I always felt alone because I had few friends and my parents were not there for me when I needed help. My teachers didn't really care to help me either, and I felt like I was all alone. Even with my dyslexia and difficulties in school, I tried to stay positive. My parents taught me that I have value, and I tried to stay strong in hopes that things would get better. The first few weeks of high school were very hard for me. On the first day, we got our schedules online, which is tougher for me because of my dyslexia. I felt lost and overwhelmed. Other students were chatting and making friends while I stood alone. Eventually, I found my classes, but my first period teacher yelled at me for being late. As the weeks went by, I learned to find my way around the school, but the homework was very hard and stressed me out a lot. My grades weren't good, and my parents only talked to me to tell me to do chores or criticize me. They worked long hours, leaving early and coming home late, never emotionally available, although they provided. By my senior year, I somehow got enough credits to graduate, and I felt proud of my strength. At graduation, many families were there, and one by one, we walked across the stage to get our diplomas. I remember that sunny day clearly, wearing my cap and gown, and when I got my diploma and looked out at the crowd, I felt my nervousness and stress disappear. I sat down feeling like the happiest person in the world. Graduating high school, I fearfully looked to the future. Graduating college seemed unattainable, and yet what else was I supposed to do? Might as well try. So that summer, I applied to the local university and surprisingly got accepted. At my first class on campus that fall, I felt as though the professor was uttering nonsense. None of it made any sense. The letters moved and jumbled on the professor's slides as well as in my notes. It took a great many highlighters and margin notes for me to successfully take notes on the lecture. College culture was very different from high school for me. I am not sure if I will ever truly be able to identify with a specific culture. Due to my family not having a strong family culture and moving around so much, I feel I am a mix of cultures I have been around. I went into college unaware of the parties, the drinking, the sleeping around. Although the college I was attending was small, I did not find a crowd to run with. Drinking did not tempt me, and I had never had many girls interested in me, so I figured it wasn't worth trying. It was hard enough trying to keep from failing and completely embarrassing myself. I did spend the little free time I had working on my relationship with the Lord. I visited the little college chapel as often as I could and often felt as though it was my only safe place in the world. My junior year, after 2 years of struggling to fit into college life, a beautiful transfer student showed up from somewhere overseas. She accepted my nervous invitation to dinner, and we dated for several months. Although the relationship taught me how to be a gentleman, I desperately struggled with temptation. It took me writing Bible verses on my wrists to keep me from following my desires and going home with her at nights. She was undecided on her boundaries, and I thank the Lord often that He gave me the strength and resources to not fall into that temptation. 6 months later, I was thinking of marriage when she broke the news to me that she was moving back home and needed to end our relationship. Although I took it like a man, I felt the crushing weight of abandonment yet again. Getting through college was a struggle on every level. However, I was determined to give it my best and succeed despite the many factors that seemed to be working against me, and eventually I made it through and graduated. After graduation, I moved back in with my parents for the time being, but I didn't want to stay at home long. I now felt like I could never live up to their standards and thus tried to avoid them as much as possible. Throughout college, I struggled to decide on a major and felt as though I could never find one that would suit me. Despite my struggles with dyslexia, I finally ended up deciding to major in information technology, IT. I enjoyed working with computers for the most part and felt that this major suited me and my introverted personality best. During the summer following my graduation, I applied and got hired on by a company as a computer technician. Although the job wasn't too hard for me, it was extremely draining mentally, and the heavy workload that was demanded of me caused much stress and anxiety. I also had moved out of my parents' house and was renting a cheap apartment by myself, and money was tight for me. This only added stress, and after a couple of months, I felt as though I had reached a breaking point. I wanted to quit my job, but I also needed to pay my bills and couldn't afford the risk of going a month without a paycheck. Eventually, I snapped. I can clearly remember one night sitting at my desk yelling at God. I was angry with him because I felt he was the source of my struggle. Oh, how wrong I was. It was during this time of stress and anxiety that I eventually realized it wasn't healthy for me to continue targeting God as the source of my problems, and I decided I needed to start attending church again. Attending church strengthened my faith and gave me a newfound sense of purpose. For the first time in a while, I started focusing on my relationship with God and spent much of my free time reading the Bible and praying. After doing this, my stress and anxiety almost immediately began to dissipate, and I began to feel more at peace with my life and also began to have a more positive outlook on work. I didn't stress about it like I used to. I also started attending a Bible study during this time, and it was at this Bible study that I met Sarah. She was beautiful, and I loved talking with her. Eventually, I worked up the courage to ask her out, and to my delight, she said yes. Fast forward 6 years, and I'm now a proud husband and father. Sarah and I got married just over 2 years after that night we met, and we now have 2 beautiful daughters. I'm still successfully working as a computer technician, and over the years I've been promoted, and now I'm in a more managerial position. Although my past was rough, the goodness of God has made my life what it is today. I pray every day that I can raise my 2 daughters to know and love Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Thanks for watching, everybody.